Let's go for a question that was asked by one of my subscribers. They asked me about how it is that I draw textures in my drawings, such as making something look like it has a texture that if you touch it, then you could actually be able to feel that, if that makes any sense, such as, for example, tree bark, or maybe wood, or a brick, or a side of a building, or something like that. Now, let's go ahead and start here. So let's say I want to make the texture of a tree. Now, when you look at a tree, you want to think of the shape of it. You know, if you look at some trees, they might be more curved and wavy like that, whereas other trees are going to be more like this, such as maybe a palm tree. And then you have others that are such as a big redwood tree that are like that. Those are the three main shapes that we think of when we think of a tree, or maybe this one here. I'm keeping it very basic. So you've got these four here. Now when you look at this one, if you have light coming in from the right side, now being that the light is coming this direction, imagine that this is the side of the tree that does not get any light. I'll put a moon on this side. Okay, so light and dark side. Now, being that the light is coming this direction, I will shade on this side. So that's the first step. Now that I've given you a simple example of what that looks like, the next step is to do this a bit closer. I'll draw this larger. As you can see while I'm drawing this, I draw a line that comes like this. And then instead of drawing like this, I want to make it give the illusion that there's more there, that there's more shape to it than what there really is. And the way I do that is by, instead of drawing a line like I did there, I'll draw my line, and then wherever I would want that part of the tree to where it's going to hump over like this here, form that shape where this part's going to be in shadow. So come up and see where that turns. Now being that that part of the tree is turning, there's going to be some over here, and then that can turn up more, and so on. And by doing that, you give the illusion of the shape of the tree, kind of like a spiral. Now that I've done that, think of tree bark and how tree bark feels if you are to touch a tree. Now the bark on it might be smooth, or it can be more of a rough texture. Now the bark on trees kind of looks something like this. As you can see, there's very small little squares of where the tree bark gives off that texture. Now if I keep drawing these patterns over and over, I will eventually get to a point to where I've drawn the texture of the tree. Now there are two ways of doing this. I can draw these and worry about every single little detail of it, or I can do it another method, which is combining this very simple method here along with that there. Now, the way I do this is by doing a bit of the hatching on the tree and adding that in as well. Now, as you can see here, there are square shapes, but there are a few spots where I make a line or a dot here and there, and that is to give the illusion of the texture that there are smaller ones, to give the illusion that there's more there. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of that, which I'll be doing on this tree that I've drawn here. So the light is coming in from that side. It's dark on that side. And I want to give the cross hatching on it and the illusion of the bark. So the first thing I will do is think and imagine the shape of the tree. Imagine touching the tree, how it feels, and imagine yourself standing there and how the light looks hitting it. Now I'm going to come in, do some of my shading on this side here, which is the furthest away from the light source. Now as I come around the tree, when you're coming like this direction, around the tree, the light that is, for example, this side is dark, that side is light. Now the center of it here, this, you'll have a spot to where it goes from being a very contrasty, where there's a highlight, to being dark suddenly. And that is because of the shape of the tree as you're drawing it. That's because it's rounded like this. So imagine that there is light coming in from this direction. When the light source hits the side of the tree here, this whole area is highly illuminated until it gets to here, where it suddenly gets dark on that side, and the darkest is going to be that side. Now if the light is coming in at this angle, then it's going to be the same thing, but just imagine that as a circle. Now this side is going to be dark, and this side is going to be light. Now if we apply this to the tree here, which has a twisted shape, and I'm wanting to draw a tree in my doodle, and I'm wanting to make a texture, I'm going to go in and shade and do some cross hatching on the areas that are in shadow. Now I want to also make sure that you see this line here, which comes into a loop, kind of a half circle. Now when I'm doing my hatching, I want to try to follow that to give imagine the illusion of the turning and the twisting of the tree. And I can do the same in the other areas. Let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. Now I'm drawing all these lines in the same direction to lay down the first layer, and then I can go in the other direction and add another layer. Let's go ahead and look at that as well. That is my first layer. I could actually add more here if I want to. Okay, so now I'll go through, instead of going only this direction, I'm going to go this direction as well. And this is going to be in the areas that are the darkest, the farthest away facing from the sunlight. As you can see here, it's already starting to make a texture on the surface, just because I've been following the shape of the tree. And by following the shape, you can give the illusion that there is more there than what there really is. And so, for example, as I've shown you here, if you think of the shape that you're drawing and you follow the steps of adding the cross-hatching that makes sense with the direction of the light, then you can get the shadows and highlights in the proper areas. And by doing that, you can then, in what you're drawing, draw things that give it the shape, such as if you're drawing a portrait or pretty much shading anything really. Especially something that, for example, a lot of my drawings when I'm drawing organic things or trees or leaves or anything like that, a lot of them will have cross-hatching in areas that are a lot of shadow, and then it transitions into the light. Or I might have areas that are more dense and detailed where I have a lot of cross-hatching, and others that are in a lot of light and they have a little bit of stippling here and there. Now that is one way to do it, to give the illusion that there is a lot of texture there. And now with that done, we could, if we wanted to, add a second layer or a second step, which would be this here. Now we're going to add that and apply that to this tree. And as you can see, I'm drawing some spots that have small little squares, and the other areas just have little dots, but I'm adding more of the dots and the squares in the areas that are in more shadow. But the areas that are actually, as I said, in more shadow, I'm putting more dots, and the areas that are in more light, I'm putting the squares that have the white in the center for the contrast, because the light is hitting it. Because on this side, there's not going to be any light hitting it, and being that I've already done my cross-hatching, I don't have to go in and add all those squares, because I can just add dots to fill that in, to give that the illusion that I've drawn those there when I haven't. Or I can just make little marks. So far that is one way to make textures, and in this example that I've shown here, first we focus on where are the shadows. Where is the light source coming from, and what type of light source is this? Is the light source direct? What direction is it coming from? If it's a light source is coming from a flashlight or something more direct, you would then have more shadows in the areas in the top and the bottom, and a lot of highlight in this area if you had a flashlight shining on it in that side. But that's something I can get into even more detail in another video. But for this is just talking about some basic and simple textures that I do with my drawings for adding to my doodles and everything that I make. So the first step, focus on the shadows, think of where the light source is coming from. Once you have established that, now think about what it is you might want to draw. Keep practicing that. Keep practicing drawing things that are not just straight lines or circles. Try to draw things that are like clouds, or maybe like trees that go into different shapes and different directions. And then with all these different little spots that go indented and come out and come under in every direction, you have a lot of practice of drawing and shading things in different areas, in different locations, and then you can think about and focus on where is that light source coming from, what is the shape of the object or whatever it is that I'm drawing. And if you do that a lot and you keep practicing it over and over by doing these simple steps, eventually you can just draw things. It becomes second nature. You don't really have to think about it a whole lot, and it becomes pretty easy. And that was just a quick 15-second shading I did to that. And as you can see, I'm focusing on what parts of it are going to be in more shadow and what parts of this are going to be in more light. And by doing that, you can give that illusion of all the texture from the cross-hatching that I have done. And then if you combine that cross-hatching into adding these little tiny shapes, because you want to think of what the texture looks like of what you're drawing. And by just making some simple shapes and combining that with the cross-hatching, you can then give the illusion of the texture that I have given you here in this tree. Now, there are many different ways to create textures, and this is one of the ways that I do it for drawing trees. And there are some other ways, and if I think of them, I will write them down and I will plan it out and show you in another tutorial on how to doodle textures and anything else. So remember, think of the basic shape of what you're wanting to draw. Is it more of a straight line? Is it curved? Don't just think of things as a flat surface. You want to think of things in different shapes and angles and everything. Think of things more three-dimensionally. Imagine what it looks like looking at the object from different angles. Imagine in your head that there's a sun in the sky or a light source in a certain direction. Put that in your mind. Now that you've got the light source, the next thing you want to do is then place the object in that light source. Because let's say you have an object, but there's no light at all. What do you have? You don't see anything. Now, to see anything, you have to have a light source, and so therefore, the best and probably easiest way, before you even do the cross-hatching or any of this, is to imagine in your head you're in a huge room. The room can be as large as you want it to be. Now imagine you are in this huge room. It's completely dark, you don't see anything. And then put in that room a light source. Once you have established what your light source is and the direction that the light source is going in, now think of that and then place that object that you want to draw in that location. And then, once you've done that, think of the shape of the object. Is it twisting? Is it turning? Is it more flat? Does it have a lot of turns in it? Is it oval? Is it more triangle? What type of textures would be in it? Try to imagine in your mind what the object feels like, and then apply this here, the light source, to that texture. How is that going to change the texture? What will it look like due to the light source? What shadows and highlights are going to be on that object? And with that, go from there. Think of the shadows, the highlights, the shape, the light source. What the object looks like in your mind, three-dimensionally. And then start drawing. And then you can just make some random doodles like this. It's pretty easy, and I've got a lot more tutorials like this that I will be showing you. But for now, hopefully this answers your question about how I make textures and draw these doodles the way that I do. If I can think of anything else, or if you have any questions about anything you would like me to cover in a tutorial, or any drawings or anything else, let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Until then, don't forget to keep doodling, have fun, keep creating, and let me know if you get any questions about how to create textures like these here. Hopefully that answered your questions, and let me know if you have any more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Have a good day.